always liked to read. I actually can't remember a time that I didn't know how to read because my mom taught me how when I was 3 years old. So I'm always on the lookout for new material to read. So we go to the library a lot. And one day on one of our many library trips, my mom and younger sister and I, we walked through the big glass sliding doors and through the scanner at the front door. And I noticed this sign that was propped up against the wall. And it said, book signing with local author. Now I didn't recognize the name of the author that was on the sign, and I never read any of his books or anything. But I still thought, how cool is this? You know, I thought we were just going to the library and I might get a chance to meet a real-life author. So my little sister and I, we went over to the kids section, which is normally our first stop, and the whole time I was keeping a lookout for this author. I would peer around the bookshelves and look through the books themselves, and the whole time I was wondering, well, what is this author like? Will he be nice? You know, will he be dressed up? Will he have a pen ready to give autographs? And then I thought, I was like, wait, what if he's famous? He's probably a famous author. You know, I got to take a picture with him so I can tell my friends I met this famous author. And all these thoughts were running through my head. So I looked around one of the bookshelves, and I saw the author sitting there. And I let my eyes soak in the deep brown wood of the table he was sitting at. And I noticed all of his books that were lined up on a shelf that were just ready to be picked up and read by avid readers such as myself. I also noticed there's a small container sitting on the table, and it had bookmarks that were obviously there as souvenirs for the customers who bought the books. And then I noticed the author, and he was sitting in a chair, and he had black dress shoes and dark colored pants, and his button-up shirt was also black, and he had a black mask that finished off the whole look. And I noticed that the light from the light fixture was causing a glare on his glasses, and I was like, well, you know, he's just sitting there, there's no one in line, this is my chance to go up and talk to him. So I took one step in his direction, and then I heard a noise that stopped me dead in my tracks. The author was snoring, and immediately I doubted my whole mission. I was like, you know, I can't just go up to this guy and wake him up just so I can ask him a couple questions. You know, that would just be rude. So I turned around, and I was like, I'm not talking to him, and I walked away. And then I looked back, and apparently the author heard me walking away, and he woke up. And I was like, well, you know, now he's awake, so I have to talk to him. I can't just let this opportunity pass me by. So I walked over to the table where he was sitting at, and I asked if this was his book and if he wrote it. And he's like, yeah, I wrote this book, I'm an author. And I was like, oh, cool, great, because I'm an author too. And I told him a little bit about my book, and he's like, oh yeah, cool, and he just nodded, and then he launched into a very detailed description of his own book. So I sat calmly, and I waited for him to stop talking for a minute so I could ask him a question. Unfortunately, he did not stop talking. He went on about his characters and his plot and all the things he makes his characters do, and all of his other story plots that he's ever come up with, and how hard it was to get his book published, and how much it cost, and all this stuff. And he just kept talking and talking and talking for like 20 minutes. And I was standing there. There was no chair. It was just me standing in front of the table, and he was sitting. And my mom, she stood off to the side, and she was obviously ready to go. You know, we'd been there longer than we intended to be. And I was ready to go, but the author was not ready for me to go, and he kept talking. So I stood there for maybe 10 more minutes, and then I told him, I was like, hey man, I gotta go. He's like, okay, and he reluctantly let me leave. So we went out to the car, and once we got in the car, I just breathed a huge sigh of relief, you know. Better to be sitting in the car than in there listening to him talk on and on. But as I began replaying the conversation in my head, I realized that as I was talking to him, I found out that people are just people, you know. They'll let you down and they'll disappoint you. Because when I first saw the sign, I was prepared for a great conversation with a great author. But in my mind, I had elevated him to a position that he wasn't able to fill. My expectations were too high for him to meet. So when I talked to him, it felt like I felt disappointed and let down. So from this experience, I learned not to put too high of expectations on people, and not to try to set a standard that's too high for them to fill. So thank you for your time.